Do you ever learn a lick but find it hard to actually play it well in your solos? Well, I used to learn guitar licks thinking they would help me play better, but I get so frustrated because they never sounded smooth when I integrated them into my playing, and I eventually thought focusing on learning licks was a waste of time until I came up with this simple system to learn them more efficiently and effectively. Before we look at the first step, let's hear a lick that we're gonna get the most out of. So what we want to do is strip down, move around, and adjust. It's not only the way to get the most out of each guitar lick you learn, but it will help you to go beyond them and play more melodic and meaningful solos. So strip down. Whoa, that's not what I mean. So in the first step of the system, what we want to do is strip the lick down to just the essentials, playing it with no embellishments like this. And I made it easier by switching the note here to over here. So instead of, you have, just makes it a little bit easier. The goal here is to be able to execute the lick well by focusing on just the bare bones before you build it back up in the next steps. By simplifying down to the fundamentals, just practicing the notes in the correct order and in the right rhythm, it allows you to get those notes under your fingers and cemented in your head. And from there, you can move around. So you move it to a new position and down an octave like this. Or over here. I like to get familiar with every lick I learn in at least 3 positions, so I'm not stuck in one spot and I can improvise around within a lot of different areas on the fretboard. So we play the stripped down version in one spot of the fretboard until we feel confident with the lick itself, but then we need to figure out where else in the fretboard we might want to use it in our solos and practice it there. So the first thing, try to hear the lick in your mind and visualize where you're hearing it on the fretboard. And if you know some theory, you can try to figure out the scale degrees and the chord tones. So I know you've got the 3rd scale degree, the 5th, the 6th, the root and all that stuff. And if you move it down here, you've got the same thing, 3rd, 5th, 6th, root. And that stuff really helps to get to know the fretboard better. But if you don't know that stuff, don't worry about it. You don't need it to use this system to get the most out of what you learn. Next, we want to see if we can move the lick up or
down an octave on the same strings.
We can't hear or hear, but this one here, we can slide it up an octave so the fingering and the exact shape stays the same. So that's just like a little bonus area to always be on the lookout for. Now, just like before, when we changed where we played one of those notes, we finally add the embellishments back in and we adjust the lick. And what you will find is that it doesn't always translate perfectly in different positions because, for example, maybe a note that gets bent in the lick is much harder to do on a lower string than on the higher strings where you were playing it before. And this is where we have to get really creative, you know, so we can still try bending it. Or we can adjust it by just sliding up to the note that we would be bending to, like this. And really, most people aren't going to notice the difference, especially at the fast speed that this particular lick goes at. It's a great way to get used to creating sounds in different ways. I find it helps developing my own sound instead of just copying someone else verbatim. If it seems hard to do, you know, don't worry about it. It gets a lot easier and eventually intuitive. I find the most useful thing I can do when learning a lick is to improvise around with it. So it's not just about learning the lick in these different positions. It's really critical to play around with the notes to make them work in different contexts. It's kind of like any language, since music is a language, right? As much as English or Arabic or French. I might want to say the same thing in Egypt as I would in New York or France, but I can't say it the same way and expect to be understood exactly. So the idea is the same, but the way I execute it is different. And that's why improvising with our licks allows us to really have a conversation and a deeper, more intuitive connection with what we are playing, because we aren't just trying to copy and paste a lick into whatever context, putting a rabbit into a star-shaped hole and trying to make it fit. So let's hear how that would sound after playing it once. Okay, so strip down until you can play the lick well, move it around so you can play it all over the fretboard and aren't just stuck in a box, and then adjust. The magic happens when you move the lick around as you practice, cutting and pasting the idea you want to get across, but not just copying a verbatim in each position. Copying and pasting is what can make your solo sound kind of disjointed and unorganized. So you want to have to adjust and improvise your licks as you practice, and doing this will help you play them more confidently in any situation. And one of the most powerful tools in your toolbox to do this is to make the notes do the work for you. So check out this video here to get a head start on improvising licks and making them your own. Whenever I try to come up with my own licks, I start with simple scale shapes that tend to really fall under my fingers well, and all my creativity kind of flows from there.